Okay, and welcome to our first video for Crohn's Colitis Warriors. Tonight we're going to be talking about training and exercise and does it work for you? Tonight I'm with John, who's one of my fellow warriors, and we're going to be doing this sort of podcast vlogging series. Hopefully everyone gets something from it. We're just a couple of PTIs who have Crohn's and colitis, and we study strength and conditioning, so we thought we might be able to give some sort of perspective from that point of view. All right, John, do you want to say hello?
Absolutely. How are you doing? Yeah, this is just basically our view. So we're just kind of relating on our experiences with regard to training. So we hope we can enlighten just a few ideas and just get our view out there, really.
John, if you just let us know what sports did you participate in, like, and how has UC affected you in sport?
So my main sports been football and rugby, a little bit of tennis here and there. But obviously since having UC stroke Crohn's, which is a little bit undetermined at the moment.
Nothing like a good diagnosis.
No, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, football being the main one. How would that affect me really with football? I used to find it difficult spending a long time on the pitch. That used to kind of make me a little bit anxious. But the 45 minutes of the first half, even leading up to the game, any bit of nervousness that I would feel would turn my stomach, and I'm sure you've all experienced that. It's quite distressing, really. And then what I would have to do is let the referee know that at any point during the game he could see me running off the pitch to go to the toilet. Fortunately, that didn't happen because my approach to the game would be essentially try not to eat too much, so therefore my pouch would be really full. And yeah, so it would be eating just enough to kind of get me through the first half, but obviously not take it on too much, so my pouch would be too full and I would have to run off the pitch.
How did that make you feel, having to discuss that or bring that up to the ref or fellow teammates then? What sort of...
To be honest, not overly difficult, because a lot of my teammates knew the condition. I've always made people aware of it, really. More so maybe in a jokingly way, just as a toilet talk. And yeah, it's quite easy, actually. I find it quite easy to talk about. So it didn't make it that difficult from that perspective. What I would say is that watching what I ate before the game would have some impact on me during the game, because obviously you get those fatigue levels and you haven't got the enough energy in you to be able to perform at peak standards. So sometimes if you're very lethargic and fatigued, that would be the hardest thing for me, is competing with not enough food in your body for the pure worry of running to the toilet. So that was the hardest thing around sport for me, is actually the right amount of food in order to sustain enough energy for the game, but then not too much, so I'd be running off the pitch. I found that very difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of my barriers of late. So I used to do athletics. I was, I don't really know if you say national level, I was ranked like 4th for Northern Ireland in decathlon and 12th for Ireland, and I was in the top 40 for the UK. But amongst that, I do triathlons, I do rock climbing. As you can tell, being a PTI, I was pretty much doing every sport. But for me, one of the most difficult things, certainly looking at cycling and triathlon, was how do I, in the longer races, fuel that? And it's just a massive trial by error. It almost made me give up the sport, because there's too much of a head fuck.
Excuse the explanatories.
Yeah, but I think initially, whenever I had my first operation and I had a colostomy bag, there was no even discussion about sport. I think in my I remember all the guys from my course coming to visit me in hospital, and I didn't think that I'd changed, and it wasn't until everyone looking at me with severe concern.
Yeah,
I was weighing like 50 kilos, and
Just hope the wind don't blow you over.
Last time you even seen me, I was like 80 kilos, and now I've dropped like 30 kilograms.
Yeah.
In the space of like 3 weeks. But yeah, it was one of those things. When I was in that state, I was talking to the guys, and I was like, I am never competing again. And that was actually quite a bitter pill to swallow at the time. But since then, I've competed. You know, I'm never going to be pushing top level or into a sort of high level of competition again. I just can't at the minute figure out a way how to handle that training load.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know me, last year I was training for an Ironman, and I probably didn't train right. But then that's one of the beauties of our journey, is like relearning how we're supposed to train.
Yeah.
What I found was I would hit plateaus, or I'd hit stages in my training where I felt good, and then I'd want to take it to that next level. And as soon as I would try and push, that's it. I'd have a viral infection, and that'd be me for like 6 weeks, literally bedded down for at least 10 days, and then not able to train for, you're talking 5-6 weeks, almost like you're getting that overtraining syndrome, or accumulation method, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But yeah, that can be difficult. I mean, I don't know how have you felt, because I know you've had a few ups and downs lately.
Well, for me, I mean, this is me, so October the 22nd, I had surgery to go back to permanent ileostomy from previously having a J pouch. So the recovery, the last few months have been very, very difficult, even though the decision of the surgery was taken out of my hands. But obviously now, as you know, I'm on exercise rehab at my local base, at your establishment. And I'd say things are going swimmingly well, touch wood, even though I have a prolapse stoma, which was unexpected. That was due to a blockage post-surgery. I feel like I've managed to put the weight back on, which is always a challenge with such a disease. And yeah, it's just the training is knowing enough to kind of push yourself enough, but not go too far where you kind of creep and push over the edge. And then in essence, that would be a detrimental effect. So it's slow, excuse me a second. So it's slow kind of building up, slow build up, but it's taking the time to understand that rest is just as important as the training. So at the moment, it's going really well. The weight's coming back on with the food. I feel like I can eat a lot more than what I could with a pouch, whilst having the stoma, and the things stay a lot longer in my body, so I'm getting the nutritional value from whatever I'm eating as well. So that makes a big difference as well. I'm not rushing to the toilet 12-15 times a day. As you know, that's not exaggeration. That's pretty normal for a pouch.
We both had those conversations in work.
Oh, a magnitude of times, yeah, definitely. The plus side as well as having the stoma is that I've not had to take codeine phosphate, which again can act as, it can make you feel very lethargic, and noloperamide. So touch wood, everything seems to be going better post-surgery. But yeah, it's still in a massive adjustment, so, and I'm still getting used to the training aspect again with having a stoma. But saying that, I think that only time will tell. It's like I said, it's getting better, and hopefully after the next surgery for the prolapse stoma, I can actually move on with my training again, and actually get to maybe compete in whatever sport I want to pick up again.
I mean, what would you say now? So, like, we get a lot of questions, I see a lot of questions. We personally get them ourselves at the minute.
Yeah.
Talking about that, I've just been diagnosed, or I've just had surgery. I'm probably a little bit speaking, maybe even to yourself, like whenever you first got diagnosed or first had to go through those surgeries. Like, what advice would you give to that person? Like, just starting out, when they're like, am I ever going to do this again?
I'd say, well, the first thing is just to remain as positive as you can. It's very difficult to accept, first of all, especially if you're going to go to a colostomy bag. it depends on age, and obviously I was 24 when I had the colostomy bag, and again I was very, very ill, so there was really, the choice was taken out of my hands, and it's quite hard to accept as not so much a vain person, but as someone who kind of appreciates themselves aesthetically, tries to look good, and being a PTI, as we kind of have this stigma of yeah, exactly, yeah. But you've got to remain positive. It's generally for the better. Think of all the bad experience you've had previously because of the UC, because of the Crohn's, and the light basically the better you will feel post surgery. Now it's difficult, like I said, it's difficult to accept the fact that you have a colostomy bag, but it does make life a lot easier with regards to going out places without worrying about the toilet too much. Spending longer away from the toilet, and just generally feeling better in yourself, not always run down because things are passing through your body so quick. You're not actually getting any nutritional value from your food. It's just straight in one end and straight out the other. Sleeping better through the nights without having to worrying about getting up to go to the toilet. So you just got to remain positive, really, and know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Say it again.
You never struggle to have something to start a conversation with.
No, absolutely. It's a debilitating disease, and I think that having the surgery, not that I'm very pro surgery, don't get me wrong. I think if there's any medication out there that obviously with the step forward that they've taken through Crohn's and colitis now with the research, I think with the fecal transplants and all the different medication they come out with, it's moving in the right direction to stay away from surgery, because ultimately no one wants to be cut into pieces and then obviously have the colostomy bag. But for me, it worked. It made me feel 1,000 times better, if that's even possible. But I knew then as well that I would have a reversal surgery, which really didn't turn out the way I'd hoped it had, and therefore I'm back to where I was. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can definitely get back to training to a high standard if that's where you are. You can get back to doing your active daily living tasks without being in pain, without worrying about the toilet, without feeling fatigued all the time. So yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, I'm not always pro surgery, but for me it worked. And the sport should never have to stop. It's just managing your time around. I mean, for yourself, having the J pouch, how would you say you manage your time? I mean, with regards to going out training. So from early morning, I used to wake up, go to the toilet twice, even before I even think about stepping outside the door. So, I mean, how would you manage that then? If you're thinking, right, I want to go out for a long run, or I want to go out training early morning, get that done out of the way. How would you manage that with your condition?
So I think I'm quite lucky in comparison to what I know about your story. I think I've got the luckier end of the stick with how I've adapted. So with that, it's something I need to pay more attention to. But when I train in the morning, if I was to go out for a run jog in the morning, it doesn't actually affect me too much.
Okay.
As long as I just have like a little bit of water. But I would go to the bathroom before I go for definite. Like I would not go to the bathroom. It would be like that's part of my training.
Nervous bathroom, is it?
And then go out and do it, and I tend to be fine. There'll be the odd occasion if I haven't done it for a while where I'll be like, I'll go on a treadmill, and I'll just go. I'll open up the gym and just go train in the gym on the treadmill. But similarly, like at the minute, I'm not training so much in the morning. I'm more training at lunchtime. Yeah. And what I find in there is, I discussed with you the other day, is like it can be hit and miss sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
As to what sort of state I'm going to be in pre-training.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of people out there chucking out their own processes that they go through, but I think it's something each of us individually probably needs to sit down and just own it. The biggest thing for everyone when they're trying to train with Crohn's colitis or with a J pouch or with a colostomy bag is you need that knowledge of yourself. You need to know what you're in and what comes out. So at the minute, I'm trialing bananas and seeing if that helps solidify things. I love a good chat. Trialing bananas and ultimately, like one of the things I've discovered. So there's a lot of diet and nutrition things out there at the minute that are quite polarized, talking about like low carb to ketogenics to high carb traditional forms of diet. I try going into the sort of keto sort of thing and cutting out carbs. What I find is that makes me far too acidic. And so when I have a high level of acid, that makes things very uncomfortable, which means like sleepless nights, difficult training because of those sleepless nights. And then obviously experiences in the bathroom become slightly more discomforting.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think for me, I'm quite fortunate in that I can go and train, generally speaking, most days without many mishaps. But I'll always, I'm on the toilet before I train.
Yeah, absolutely. I do exactly the same.
But yeah, Joe, actually, whenever I had the bag, I actually found it quite convenient sometimes going to the bathroom. So like one of the other sports is golf, and I go out with my mate Ollie, and we play 9 holes, and I'd need to empty the bag like at 9 holes, and so sometimes it wasn't convenient to go back in to find a toilet. So just literally behind a bush, take a knee, roll out the bag, out we go, flush it with a bit of water, done. And
absolutely. I definitely, like I said, it's a tough realization you have to go back to a bag, and it comes with this stigma and all that. And people obviously without the bag, they wouldn't understand that, but it definitely makes your time a lot more productive and your life a lot easier. Excuse me, once you get used to it. Like I know now, say we're gonna have a family day out. I have absolutely no worries about the time I'm going to be spending out and the time I'm going to be spending away from the toilet. Not always thinking, right, where's the next toilet? If we go there today, let's plan where the toilet's going to be. Or if I eat this, then it's going to be a little bit difficult to go out and do certain things. So I definitely think that my life has changed for the better with having the bag. Now, when it comes to training, like I said, I can go for a lot longer without even worrying about thinking toilet. And it does, I think it just gives you a lot more freedom, without a doubt, a lot more freedom. What about actually your training and fatigue level? So that the level you train at, does it make you ill? So having UC or having Crohn's, now the different training levels, so whether you're just someone who just enjoys just general activity or someone who competes, sort of where you sit in between, like whether you sit either one of them or sit in between, does the training actually physically make you feel worse? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean there are athletes out there that obviously play elite level sport. You know, there's Michelle Wilcox, who's like a GB triathlete, but she's an ostomate or has an ostomy. And then there's a couple out there like Darren Fletcher and the likes who are all ambassadors for Crohn's Colitis UK.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But I think for me, there is definitely a way. There's definitely scope to push your training up to competing at whatever level potentially you want to achieve. For me, I haven't found that way yet, and I'll be honest, my training is at a level that I find comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. It's something I've got to be very careful about. And I think like we're both parents now, and one of the things I'm really conscious of is having enough energy in the evenings.
That
in itself makes me taper my training somewhat, so that I'm not completely spent. Because there'll be times I'll get fed up and I'll just want to have a hard training session, and I'll do it, and it's nowhere near as hard as which that's another conversation. It's nowhere near as hard as what I would previously have trained at. But there'll be literally a physical switch. I'll feel like a physical switch inside me, or I can actually feel myself approaching that line.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll go, do you know what? I'm going through it today. But then like afterwards, I am totally depleted. It's like I've run out of energy completely, and it's like sleep. And it's such a strange thing, like, because I'll be fine up until that point, and I feel like, come on, today's the day. Let's push it. And I'll feel that it almost feels like someone kicking your insides.
Absolutely.
And then it's like, boom, cold sweats. I need to sleep. I need to sit down. I need to literally do nothing for the next hour and a half. And then even after that, I'm in recovery mode. That's it. Like
But the difficulty is, as you mentioned, is that you're either still in work and you've still got to go out there and treat your patients and be involved and be enthusiastic. But you really want a hard session in the afternoon. So it's a fine balance you find. Now, the difference is if you're a full-time athlete, like the guys you've mentioned, the guys and girls you've mentioned, is that they will have the sufficient rest and recovery required, governed by their strength and conditioning coach or the diet nutritionist. So that's the difference we have between essentially is a full-time athlete and then us guys who are full-time working. Family people that really like to train hard but find it very, very hard to find a good balance. Like I said, previous to having the pouch, I used to find that, you know, I'd wake up in the morning, I'm sure most people do, I'd wake up in the morning where I'd probably be about 50% of my battery full. I never felt like I had a full battery, and that was before I had the little one, so, you know, the sleepless nights and so forth. So you'd wake up in the morning, 50% battery. Then you think, right, my training is going to be, I'm going to be going training early morning to get something in before work, and that would be a WOD of some type, some high intensity training, nothing too heavy lifting because it's too early, and then, you know, you'd have your breakfast and then you'd train at lunch. So you'd have an hour and a half of training lunch, and that'd be a lifting period. So we do some kind of resistance training or some kind of Olympic lifting. Now, all the time, your battery's depleting, continued depleting. So by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when you've got your nodes to get down and you're still expected to be, you know, full on in work, is that you're actually almost 0% your battery. The coffee, or you're getting any food that you can, anything you can just to give you a little bit of buzz. And generally that would end up for most people as sugars, because there's a quick rush and I can feel good for about 5 minutes. And then you get that kind of smash, it's gone again. So, and then evening time, you just feel like completely depleted. That's it, your energy's gone. Get in a bit of food, maybe feel a little better, and then early to bed. But then it's the same again. You wake up the next morning, you start depleted. So the difficulty is finding the right balance between training hard enough to feel good or for what sport you're doing, but also having the sufficient recovery afterwards. And everyone's going to be so different with their experiences of obviously toilet, diet, training, family life. It's very, very difficult to fit everything around. But somehow we just manage. Somehow there's no point. I've seen on forums that people say, you know, I used to train 3-4 times a week, and you know, compete maybe once, twice a week, and I've had to completely stop doing that. And I'd understand, yes, if you're having a flare up or if you're having a really, really bad few weeks, but to stop completely, I don't think that really will help in the long term. I think it's just going to find, you know, slowly sort of break it down and slowly introduce things rather than just completely stop and cut that out of your life. But I feel some people need to understand.
I think it's a big thing that people get lost in. Maybe get lost in the enormity of what is happening to your body.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's understandable. I completely get it. But I think for me, it's looking at your mindset and looking at like how do you move forward now with what you've got. And I think some people like feel that they've lost a normal life, but what I would ask people to do is to maybe ask themselves, well, what is a normal life? Do you know what I mean? You look at Joe Average out there, you know, he's potentially massively overweight and doesn't do anything with his life anyway. You know, there's lots of different ways to get around things, you know, like, so for me, one of the biggest things, whenever everything happened to me whenever I turned 30, effectively, which says everything about turning 30 and nothing.
Yeah, a massive combustion. There you are, you turn 30 and smash, there you go.
Yeah.
Have a bowel disease.
One of the biggest things for me was actually getting back up to just running 10 minutes continuously. And that was a milestone. You know, and that took about 6. How long would it take? Must have been about a good 4, maybe 6 months. Like, I know a lot of that, like, admittedly, I possibly could have done it sooner, but I think there was a lot of personal adaptation going, and things like that, and I was just looking for distractions. But then when I got back into training, I think I did some basic rehab, and then I think about month 3, then I started actually training under my own steam.
Yeah.
And just going through the walk jog sort of process, which basically breaking down a run. I then got up to like 10 minutes, and then it was like 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden, I was running for 30 minutes, and that was huge. But it was like before that, I was running 10Ks in under 40 minutes. So
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? That in itself was a massive shock, like not being able to run, not even, and it wasn't the fact that I couldn't run per se. I just didn't even have the energy to do it, and I think.
But it's finding the new norm. It's like
Yeah.
essentially what you're describing there is setting smaller goals, setting goals, but realistic goals as well. It's not just saying, right, I'm going to get back to where I was within a small time frame. It's not that it'll never happen. It's just going to take that much longer because your body dynamics are a little bit different now, or a lot different in some cases.
Life's too short, isn't it? Life's just too short to get yourself hung up on doing that. And I think your focus on you rather than what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Because there's loads of people, like, we're surrounded by social media now where all you see is pictures of people having a wonderful life, doing crazy shit.
Yeah.
But actually, if you just focus on yourself, focus on what you did yesterday, and can you do better than that today? That's going to win half the time.
Well, that's what I found difficult in the last kind of 6 months with the surgery I've had, and the dramatic change to my body shape and the way I feel, is that I've stayed as clear as I can from things like Instagram and Facebook, where you'll see people in better condition, competing and doing all the things you think, I just wish I could be back there as soon as possible. But the start realization is it's going to take a long time to get back there, and it may not even get back there. But going on these sites can sometimes make you feel hugely deflated, and you can't compare yourself to them people. At one time I could, and dare I say it, probably better than some of them, but now my body's a bit different, and the dynamics of my body are a lot different. So I have to accept what's going on in my body and then approach the way I want to train from my perspective for what I'm able to achieve. Now, that's not saying let's not aim for stars, let's not ever set ourselves difficult targets. It just means to slowly capture your monkey. It's going to take a little bit longer to get there than what you would do normally or prior to surgery. So it's understanding how your body feels and not just looking at others and thinking, I can get back there, or I'm going to get back there, or I feel really down that I can't be at that standard right now. Yeah,
and I think that's massive. Like looking at people like, I'm going to run a 4-minute mile. Okay, well, can you walk a mile? Can you walk a mile?
Well, that never happened for me anyway. That would never have happened if I had an all in my bottom, which I haven't anymore, so that doesn't matter.
But it's like people should set audacious goals. I'm definitely one of these people that thinks an audacious goal is something good to set. But what I think a lot of people fail to do is, like you're saying, is set those intermediary goals. Like, it's very good setting a goal for running a 3-hour marathon or bench pressing 120 kilos. But what are you going to do to get there? And it's that journey and facing those little stepping stone goals, if you want to call it that. So it's like a 20-minute 5K. Well, okay, let's build up to completing a 5K, and then we'll start chipping away. Some people, and I see it all the time at this time of year, is people going out and saying, I'm going to do X, and they fail to do it in that first month, and therefore they think that they failed, rather than that's where I'm at. How do I then get to where I want to be?
Absolutely, You constantly reevaluate as well. It's not just set your target and that's my target. If I don't achieve it, then I fail. Like you said, it's reevaluate. If you don't make that target in that time frame, that's fine. There's still plenty of time ahead of you. So reevaluate. Think about how do I achieve that target from where I am now. It's exactly what you just said.
And I think the other thing what I find when people shut down, even if you decided that from next week I'm going to at least walk once a week, or I'm going to walk once a day, that's you're then doing 100% more than what you did the previous week. Do you know what I mean? So that in itself, like you're doing 100% more activity than you did just by doing one walk. You do 5 walks, that's 500% more activity than you did the previous week. That takes its toll, but that's a massive, massive achievement. And I think that's just figuring things out. So like for me at the minute, I've shift things around. We talked about earlier in the week that I've shifted my mindset for different things now, and like having family time is really important to me. So we've kind of got uber organized in our sort of daily routine. So I'll get up at between 5 and half 5 now, and I'll spend an hour just doing bits and pieces, like looking into how do you set up a podcast, how do you set up a YouTube video channel and things like that, and just developing that so we can share our stories. But then that allows me to crush all of that time, and my goal is to actually start training around then. Then I'll have breakfast with the family, get into work, get myself up to lunchtime and work. I'll train at lunchtime, and then I get home, get dinner out by 6, and then sort out the little ones. And then by 7 o'clock, I've got a golden hour there to spend quality time with the missus, and then it's in bed ready for the next day by sort of 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that has made me so much more productive, and it's just little bits. So it started with just getting up.
Yeah.
I mean, literally just get up, brush teeth, go downstairs, have a coffee, and do one thing. And I did doing that one thing, and then 6:30 when everyone else is starting to get up, or the little one's going, I need a wee.
Yeah.
I've had an hour of just, but it's just the fact that I got up, and already there's just the fact that I got up. That's my first victory.
Yeah.
Then did one thing. That's my second victory. Then that I'm up and awake and I've had a coffee before they get up. That's my third victory. So by the time I got into work, I've had like 4 or 5 mini victories. So I'm already buoyed for the day. I'm just like, let's go get it. And then by 8 o'clock that night, I've done everything kind of that I wanted to do in that day. So it's like I'm ready to turn off now. I'm ready to go. And I don't feel guilty because I've had a bit of time in the morning with the kids, a little bit of time in the evening with the kids, and then some adult time with the missus.
Yeah.
And I've managed to fit it in. I think when I start training in the morning, again, I'm gonna have to readjust, like you said, to factor in that fatigue level a little bit more. I might have to take away training at lunchtime, and just see how that goes. But I think for you, I'm I think more affected by fatigue when I train, or it affects my productivity a lot more. So I don't know if I'll get away initially training twice a day.
Yeah.
You managed it a lot better.
Well, like you said, that's just, you've got to build up to these things and understand. And it helps you to understand your body a little bit more than just go, right, I'm going to train twice a day. But like you said, the effects of that would be maybe adverse, is that you'd end up then going backwards. You're not actually getting the true training effects. You're going to start feeling fatigued. Your body's going to start getting a little bit more maybe catabolic because you're not getting enough energy, you're not getting the right foods. So it's small steps. But ultimately, as long as you're doing something throughout the day that makes you feel a little bit better, with regards to exercise or even just family time, you're still achieving some goals. And even if you're combining them, I don't know, say, let's go for after work, and your children come home from school, let's actually go for a walk as a family. So you get 2 birds, 1 stone. You're going out for a walk, you're doing some kind of physical activity, and you've got quality family time. So there are ways around it. It's just labour on the point is that there's no point with regards to having the illness. That you don't just cut everything out. You don't just stop activity. You don't just stop physical activity because you got an illness. It's a way around that, because if that's one thing that kind of helps you to unwind and relax is activity, then why completely cut it out? Because that's not going to help in the long term. You're going to start feeling, a little bit down because you've not got anything to find to have that release. So don't cut everything out. Just manage it better, or find some time. Work out a little plan. So that's probably a better way of doing it than completely shutting out any activities.
So I remember earlier in the conversation you were talking about not getting enough nutrition, particularly when you had a J pouch yourself. Was there anything that you used to help supplement your diet in order to make sure you were getting as much vitamins and minerals as you could?
So this was massive trial and error for me. I found that if I tried to get on as much clean and solid protein as I could, and I didn't find that had any bad effects on my stomach. So, but if I thought, well, actually, I've got a high metabolism, natural high metabolism. So with the training effect on top of that, I needed a lot more calories in my body. However, having the J pouch, going to the toilet 12 to 15 times a day, would mean that I wouldn't be able to sustain that calories in my body on top of the training. In essence, I would be in a calorie deficit all the time. So I would probably try and supplement that with a protein supplement. But I wouldn't be able to drink the protein as a shake, because that would be in one end and out the other. So then I was just wasting money. I literally may well just be pouring the protein down the toilet. So what I did find is that if I was going to supplement, is some of the flapjack bars, or I would put the protein powder into a porridge, and I could tolerate, my stomach could tolerate that a lot better. What else would I mean? Banana.
That's one of the things as well, like what you're talking about. So I personally was one of those skeptics when I was looking at things. So we've both got some knowledge in a sort of nutrition arena, just from personal experience, a little bit of stuff here and there. It was part of our degrees, a little like for a module. So I became fixated for a long period that consuming protein with carbs reduced my body's effectiveness to be able to synthesize protein. So, and I find a lot of people will basically dismiss you if you're consuming protein with a carb, because they're like, oh, well, you're just not getting the protein. But I think for people like us, well, that's the only way you're going to get it in. In some cases, certainly for yourself, that was the only way. So again, it comes back to that: you're getting 100% more protein than you are if you just took it straight. Because it's going straight out.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, it was always clean eating for me. I've always been that way, regardless of the illness that I had. It would always be as clean as you like. However, my weekend eating would still be a little bit relaxed. So, not that my diet was always geared around training, but it was more an amalgamation of training and the illness and the effects that the food would have on my energy levels. So like I said, I would try and supplement if, of course, I couldn't get enough calories in through good food products, if that makes sense. Because essentially a supplement is exactly that. It's to supplement something that your body is lacking in any way. So other foods would be bananas, white rice, anything that I would just kind of be able to maintain in my body, whether it be good or bad. It would still be some nutritional value, some calorific value that would be maintained in my body, so I would keep up a decent amount of weight, if that makes sense. But there was, I wouldn't say there was anything I would be able to say, yeah, definitely this, because again, we're all very different. I know that people would be able to tolerate chocolate better than I would. I'll be talking, obviously bad foods now, but be able to tolerate chocolate a lot better than I would. So I'd take chocolate, and again, in one end out the other, which is highly not very nice feeling, because obviously we all like a bit of chocolate. Foods, but so I mean, we can elaborate more on diet and nutrition another point. It's just trying to make the point that if you're struggling to get the calories in through just good eating and good food, is that there's always an option of taking a supplementation. It's just how that supplement sits on your body. There's loads, there's a plethora of different products out there that you can take. Personally, I found that the USN anabolic one was high calories, and it was actually quite nice tasting, and that mixed with porridge would always be pretty good on my stomach. So I found that would give me enough calories as well, so that I wouldn't go into a calorific deficit post-training or pre-training.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just very focused on vitamins and minerals. So like, I'm always experimenting with veg, just to see what I can consume. That's basically like energy. And a good balance has been my focus for the last 6 years now, since I was diagnosed. And that's been my main driver. So for me now, like after last year's 2 or 3 viral infections, I've been even more so looking, right, I am not getting enough vitamins and minerals. So despite chucking as much veg and fruit, well, more veg than fruit actually, into my system as possible to try and get those levels up. It still wasn't enough, so I found like getting like green juices. So you can get green juices from, there's lots of different ones on the market.
Yeah.
But it's got a lot of mixture of vitamins, so there'll be things like spinach and spirulina and stuff in there. What I've found is that mixed with like a banana or something makes it, again, like you're saying with protein, just makes it stay in my system. Then I'm getting more into myself, and then taking things like zinc and magnesium and vitamin Bs. Again, supplementing that in there on top of an already heavily fruit and veg biased diet. Just make sure that I'm actually getting the right levels, because I think vitamin B for people with Crohn's colitis or whatever stage, I think is from my reading is a vitamin that we really struggle to absorb because of the high output. And that has, in the last couple of months, really, I've noticed a real big difference through just making sure, having those, again, like you said, healthy, balanced diet, lots of fruit and veg, adding those two things in, so a green juice and supplementing with zinc and magnesium and B vitamins, has really helped me be better in the mornings. And I feel a little bit fresher.
If vitamins, I've tried obviously just administering vitamins through your multivitamin tablets and stuff, and I still didn't find that had any benefits from taking them. So generally, I found that if I was taking, I found that because of the output that I was very iron deficient. So I think taking the iron vitamins made a big difference for me. But like I said, I feel like because that didn't make much of a difference, that I might be getting enough just from taking the good various amounts of food and different amounts of such as, like you said, spinach, taking on bananas, you're getting plenty of zinc in the diet. So it's just finding the right foods. It doesn't also, because some people may think, buying all the different supplements, buying all the different products it's not very cost effective. But then I would say, conversely, is that you can't put a price on your health. So if you can find it through good foods, if you can find a good balance through good foods, then essentially you won't need the extra vitamins, or you won't need the extra supplements. But they are there to help, and whatever works best for you will obviously then have a good effect on your training or even on just your daily life, really.
We're coming up in about sort of 47, 48 minutes. Okay. So we'll look at wrapping it in. So John, what would your takeaway be? What would you from today's episode? What would you want people to take away from it? What would be your three key areas to take something away from here?
Firstly, it's just to understand that it's not the be all and end all. Even with just the diagnosis, first of all, it's not the be all and end all. It doesn't have to define who you are or what you're able to do. Secondly, don't stop what you're doing because of this. Try and work out ways around how you can set little goals and not just think, right, that's it, got a diagnosis, I'm not going to get any better, I'm not going to get back to where I was, so let's ultimately just stop what I'm doing. That's not the point, that's not the approach, because you've got to be positive throughout. Thirdly is just, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's a horrible, debilitating disease, but I found for myself is that a lot more people out there experiencing these kind of problems, and the more you talk about it, the more people you get involved, you can flow off each other and understand what works for them that might actually work for you that you never thought about before. So it's having a good support group as well, and just get out there, enjoy it and embrace it, and just try and overcome everything. It's a horrible hurdle to overcome, but with support of family, friends, and people that have been through the same kind of thing, is that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I pretty much would just echo that. Like, the first thing is that you're never alone.
Absolutely.
We were talking earlier about we stand alone together.
Yeah.
But in that, you're never actually truly really alone. There's always people there. So I never suffer in silence. There's always someone you can speak to. And and just don't feel ashamed about it. One of the biggest things for me was, and it's probably just the person that I am anyway, is the first conversation I had with anybody since I was diagnosed and had a colostomy bag was to instantly talk about the colostomy bag. I just elephant in the room. I'm gonna talk about it. All of a sudden, just because I did that, it removed any sort of stigma around it. It removed that I took it, I owned it, and because I'm talking about it, then I'm on the front foot.
Yeah, so, absolutely. I agree.
And then just do that one thing. You do one thing. If you weren't doing it before, you're doing, like we said before, you're doing 100% more than what you were doing the day before. So do one thing, that's 100% more than you were doing before.
Yeah. Okie doke. I absolutely agree.
Like, all right, guys, I hope you got something from that today. Me and John's got to go back to being dads now and sort out some 3-year-olds.
Get him to bed.
All that fun and games. But yeah.
I'll get my teeth done, don't I?
Get your teeth. Yeah, with that. I need a facelift. Okay, guys, that concludes today's episode. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to press the like button down below. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're going to be backwards and forwards updating you with more information on Crohn's and colitis and generally sharing our story. So, I will see you guys.